7/8 are 56, and that's the number of days between today and Friday 9th of March 2018. That's when I'm predicting Tropical Cyclone Riley and Savannah. And this is a prophecy, a prediction that I'm making with the help of some dead kids who were the victims of bullies. And those kids are Jacob Wetterling and Ralph Morris and Ebony Simpson. And also Nathan Breeze, who died in the Black Saturday bushfires. And this prophecy itself is a message against bullies, against racists, homophobes, discriminators, people who are prejudiced and who like to bully. Specifically people in government who like to bully. And it shouldn't really surprise anyone that I'm making this prophecy with the help of these kids as a message in particular against Peter Dutton, who is the Australian Minister for Immigration and Border Protection and now the Minister for Home Affairs. And it should not surprise anyone that sometimes Peter Dutton is referred to as Little Trump. Racist, homophobic. I never should have bothered applying for a partner visa to a government department headed up by such a prejudiced man as Peter Dutton. And as a result, I'm more than 10 grand out of pocket, haven't been offered a refund. I wasn't even notified of the decision. And yes, it was a partner visa application for a same-sex relationship, and had it not been for the fact that gay people weren't allowed to marry, I never would have done it in the first place. Now gay people can marry, but it's come too late to help me. So screw you, Peter Dutton, with your homophobic attitude. And this is a prediction against you, and not just your homophobic attitude, but also your racist attitude, which I find disgusting, the way you like to demonize people. I personally can accept that there may be a problem with youth crime in Melbourne, but the way you use it as an opportunity to stigmatize and racially stereotype and demonize people is disgusting. Disgusting. Disgusting, disgusting. A bit like Daniel in this story by R.L. Stein. Someone who likes to have power over people and bully people. Not exactly what you'd call a nice person.
Community have been saying that they feel more isolated and they feel more singled out with this coverage of so many different events here in Melbourne. Now this comes amid growing escalating tension between the state government and the federal government over their tackling of the issue. It's all started with this comment from Peter Dutton in particular, who said that people in Victoria are too scared to go out for dinner because of this escalation in crime. Daniel Andrews has hit back at that and says it's nonsense. He said he went on holidays for a few weeks and went out for dinner with his family a number of times and he wasn't too scared to go out at all. But Peter Dutton's had quite a sustained campaign about crime in Victoria. This is what he said to Sky News.
At the moment, Victorians are hearing a Premier say that he doesn't think there's a problem and that he's, spending all of this time with these red herrings of come down for dinner and all this garbage. He needs to get out and speak to some of the victims of the crime. He needs to admit that he's made a problem. He needs to apologise to the Victorian public. And if he can't rectify the problem, he needs to consider his own position.
I personally would not believe or listen to a single word Peter Dutton says, because his motivations are what I would describe as evil.
But the comments that Peter Dutton has made in his capacity as Home Affairs Minister that's really caused a lot of concern today is his criticism of the Victorian judiciary. He says that this spike in crime is because of soft sentencing in Victoria and because the Victorian government's been appointing activist judges. This is what the Attorney General John Pasuto had to say about that.
We need change. And Matthew Guy and all of us on his team are offering that change. A big part of that change is the mandatory sentencing policy we announced last year. We really need to stop this merry-go-round of violence in Victoria.
No, we need to stop politicians using issues that are not necessarily going to be fixed by them using it as political capital and playing political games with the issue. That's what needs to stop. But listen to the crap. Listen to the crap.
How many more police officers have to suffer by dealing with these violent reoffenders who have gone through our justice system with just a slap on the wrist? We need change. The question is Daniel Andrews as committed to providing that change?
Now, it has become quite a war of words, but Daniel Andrews is quite adamant that Victoria Police has the backing it needs to deal with this issue. And he said that they're getting support and more than they asked for to deal with it. But hopefully there's some solutions that come out of this task force today.
Thank you very much for the update, Annalise. Family and friends are preparing to gather to farewell Amy Everett at a funeral service in Katherine in the Northern Territory today. Known as Dolly, the 14-year-old became the latest victim of cyberbullying, with the Prime Minister vowing to crack down on the issue.
Well, it's good the Prime Minister's going to crack down on the issue of bullying, because I was a victim of pretty bad bullying when I was a kid, and that's something I included in my application when I wrote to Immigration and Border Protection and uploaded more than 1,000 pages of information, including over 100 pages just on my personal history and what happened to me when I was a boy. Not just bullying when I was 12, but being the victim of a sexual predator when I was 13. Not exactly the sort of thing that you easily recover from, but when you meet someone that's, you love, and you just want to be with them, and the government cuts you off from that person and doesn't even notify you of the decision. And when you go to your local member, in my case Mike Kelly, in Eden Monaro, and you speak to his immigration person, and she just shows complete and total indifference to your situation, then you start to think, so it doesn't really matter if I vote Liberal or Labor. The major political parties, it seems, are the biggest bullies there are of all. And they set an example that I can only describe as horrible. The way they've bullied me and my partner is, and it is bullying, it's a two-faced method of bullying, but it's bullying. And sometimes the worst type of bullying is to simply ignore someone, completely ignore, give no information, no feedback for over a year, then reject the application and don't even notify the person who is forked out, in my case $7,000 for the application fee. If that's not bullying, after you've been made aware of the person's history, then why do you have this thing in your rule book that says that a person sometimes can be allowed to return? And what did my partner do that was so bad? My partner bought a tablet, as in an electronic tablet, off a customer, not knowing it was a stolen device. And that completely, he was treated as a criminal in the Victorian justice system, which you're saying is so easygoing on people. Really? Because my partner was treated like a criminal for making an innocent mistake. You wouldn't approve a visitor visa for him. I waited 3 months. 3 months for what should have been 1 month, and you did not approve my application, even the visitor application, until I threatened to make a prophecy against you. I said I would if you betrayed me, and now I'm following through. I'm not a person who says I'm going to do something and then doesn't do it. I'm doing it. I do have the help and the backing of the kids I've said. Jacob Wetterling from Minnesota, Nathan Breeze from Kinglake West in Victoria, Ebony Simpson, who was from Pheasant's Nest in New South Wales, Ralph Morris, who was burned to death by his boss in Junee over 100 years ago. Speaking of hypocrites and corrupt people with power who like to bully and intimidate and torture people, Christopher Crawley, who founded the township of Junee, was not exactly what he seemed either. The same man, I might add, who donated the plot of land upon which the Catholic Church at Junee was built. The same church that ignored Ralph's death and let him be buried without a proper funeral, without even a priest. True story, from 1899. It's disgusting.
Family and friends have been asked to wear blue to the funeral service for Amy Everett to be held in Katherine today. That was the favourite colour of the girl who was known as Dolly and became the face of the Kubra hats when she was just 6 years old. 8 years later, her life was cut tragically short.
And it sort of rips your guts out when you get this sort of news that, you know, this bullying is that out of control now, that you know, with this social media and these bloody phones, and I near reckon 99% of parents wouldn't know what their kids are dealing with these days.
Yeah, well, it's not just kids on phones, it's not just social media. The government does not set a good example when it comes to bullying. The way they've treated me, knowing that I was the victim of really bad bullying as a kid, and me, someone who chose not to suicide, well, I can't exactly say now that I'm glad I didn't suicide, because what I've gone through at the hands of my own government is horrifying.
These days.
Her family says her suicide was prompted by the relentless attacks of online bullies. They've now released this video montage as part of their campaign to use Dolly's death to put an end to online bullying. Dolly's story has made international headlines after her father posted about her death on Sunday. The Prime Minister is among those to have expressed their shock. Dolly, you are loved and you will never be forgotten, Malcolm Turnbull said. As a parent and as a grandparent, my heart breaks for Dolly and her family. From pain and loss, we must renew our commitment to say no to bullying.
And you know what? I don't doubt Malcolm Turnbull's sincerity, because he was really good when Stuart Kelly committed suicide. He went to the funeral with Lucy. They seem very sincere. But you know what, Malcolm, if you are really serious about not condoning bullying, which I know you don't, but seriously, Peter Dutton, Minister for Home Affairs, Minister for Border Protection and Immigration, no.
Bullying. The Prime Minister says the rise of social media platforms has presented new challenges and vowed to crack down on cyberbullies. His comments come after the Northern Territory's Children's Commissioner called for a police investigation into the cyberbullying that is alleged to have caused Dolly Everett's death. Northern Territory Police have now confirmed that investigation is taking place. Meanwhile, Dolly Everett's family have called for her cyberbullies to attend her funeral today so they can see for themselves the devastation their actions have caused. Matt Cunningham, Sky News.
The sole survivor of a Boxing Day car crash that claimed 4 lives remains in a critical condition in Sydney's St George Hospital after the decision to withdraw her life support. Actress Jessica Folkholt's parents and sister died in the crash, along with the drug-affected driver who caused the accident.
The decision to turn off the life support system for Jessica fewer than 48 hours after the poignant pictures emerged of the funeral service for her father Lars, mother Vivian and sister Annabelle closes the final chapter on the tragedy of Boxing Day 2017 that claimed a close-knit and loving family.
And I want you to know I completely forgive you.
The 29-year-old former star of the television series Home and Away fought for life for 2 weeks before the injuries she sustained finally took their toll. The accident on the New South Wales far south coast also claimed the life of drug-affected driver Craig Whittle, now known to be a persistent traffic offender who served 4 jail terms because of his disregard for the law and his refusal to obey driving disqualification. 50-year-old Whittle's record shows 10 counts of driving while disqualified and 60 other convictions, which resulted in the courts declaring him an habitual offender. But he'd been granted a restricted P-plate licence on the grounds he needed it to attend a methadone clinic.
So there's a real good decision, isn't it? Let's give this guy a P-plate licence. I mean, government, it makes life almost impossible for ordinary people just wanting to go to work, go home, do their daily day-to-day stuff. With speed traps set up everywhere, things that are designed to trap the ordinary driver who just goes a little bit too fast or whatever, and the fines you cop for doing something slightly wrong are so over the top. It's bloody disgusting. And then they let people like habitual offenders out to kill people. It's like, the kid in this book, Daniel, he's a bully. He's a bully, undoubtedly a bully. His brother, Samuel, basically just does what he's told. But guess which kid does most of the killing, or pretty much all of the killing in this story? It's Samuel. Samuel, the likable boy, does what he's told. Just like a soldier sent off to war by a government. And we could well see that not too far away under Donald Trump. People who discriminate, people who are prejudiced, people who promote bigotry, they also promote war. My message to young people is do not go to war for Donald Trump. Do never go to war for someone like Peter Dutton. Never, ever. Don't even think about it. Even if you're in the military, just walk away. Because these people will create wars. Bigotry is it's the cause of war. Bigotry and prejudice. So, yeah. Let's keep listening.
On his way home from that clinic in Nowra, Whittle drove his Toyota Prado onto the wrong side of the road and head-on into the Falkholtz family car. Police continue their investigations into the crash as they prepare their report for the coroner. Terry Galloway, Sky News.
Speaking of war, it's pretty scary to think that you can die in such a violent way just driving down the highway. And that's something else that has motivated me to make my prophecy, is the way I've been bullied by the government to work more than I'm capable of working. I work in after school care. I work as much as I can, given everything that's happened to me. I'm not on drugs. I've stayed away from drugs, but I don't sleep well, and there's a limit to how much I can work. So when the government forces me to work more than I can safely work, they actually endanger people driving on the road. That's another big thing. That's why bullying people for political capital, you want to send this propaganda message out to do with, dole bludgers or whatever, African Americans being dangerous people who shouldn't be allowed to come to Australia in the first place, which is essentially what Peter Dutton is doing. That kind of propaganda, that kind of populist message, it only creates harm. It only makes problems worse, and it only makes things more dangerous much more dangerous actually than they were to begin with. So it's like Australia's government cracked down on drugs so effectively that we ended up with an ice epidemic. Australia needs to wake up to the fact that the biggest danger facing them is their own government, and the bullying of their own government, and the false information being put out by the likes of Peter Dutton and Donald Trump in America. And Donald Trump in America is very relevant to Australia. We have followed America in every other way, and yeah, it's little wonder that Dutton is called Little Trump. He really is. And he's got the most powerful portfolio of any politician in Australia today. So I make this prophecy as a message. If this is a bad event, Riley, I'm not saying it will be a bad event, it may not be. But if it is, and if there are victims and people die, then that is a reflection. This prophecy, this is not like saying, I'm going to punish Australia for doing the wrong thing by me. Australians just voted for same-sex marriage, something I'm very grateful for. No, this is to send a message. This is a prophecy, this is a prediction that I think is very accurate. I might add something here actually, and that is the time. I think the time 9:45 is going to be relevant to this. AM, PM, I don't know, but 9:45 I think could be relevant. And it's a message. The prophecy itself is a message against bigotry, against prejudice, against political propaganda, against populism. against Donald Trump, against Peter Dutton, against people who bully, people that have already been the victims of bullying, people that have already been, and immigration were made well aware that I was the victim of a sexual predator and the victim of serious bullying when I was a kid. And I'm disgusted by the way I've been treated and by the way my partner was treated. Absolutely disgusted, appalled, and the fact that I went to my local member and they were completely indifferent. Mike Kelly probably doesn't even know about this, but his immigration person, her response to me was disgusting. Her indifference to what I said about what happened to me as a kid, just standing there and saying, yes, yes, we understand that, was disgusting. And it's partly what has motivated me to make this prediction. And it's also why at the next federal election, I'll be leaving my ballot paper blank as blank in the House of Representatives, and I'll only be voting in the Senate, and I will not be voting for either major party.
The Education Minister says today's national report into outcomes for university students